My journey began in 1997 when a friend of mine had asked me if I would write a song for a local fundraiser to be held in Staten Island for the children of war-torn Bosnia. I was always involved in music, and I said yes, but at the time I was paralyzed with anxiety and panic attacks due to the loss of my mother, my childhood sweetheart, and my grandmother, who I was very close to, all in a short span. And I was reluctant, but I said I would, and I knew very little about the country. But I did some research, and I started to write. And while I was writing, I found myself connected intensely with what was going on with the country. And so I titled the song, "Let's Do a Miracle." The song was used successfully for that day, and children came with their parents and with toys and envelopes with dollars, and I said to myself, wow, I should do more, but how can I? How can I do this? I had worked 5 minutes from my home in radiology, and I just about managed to get up every morning and go to work. I didn't know what was happening with me. I didn't tell anyone. It was horrific. But something inside me compelled me. I wanted to do more. I didn't know how. I read about the ambassador at the time to Bosnia who lived in Staten Island. And I said, maybe if I call the office and, kind of tell him that I'd like to do something, maybe somehow I can initiate. I called, and they invited me to go there. And I was petrified. How am I going to go to the UN? How am I going to get on the ferry? How am I going to do this? Well, I took every ounce of energy and bravery to do this, and I did. And I stood in his office, and he thanked me for coming. And he said, we have much stronger needs than pencil cases and crayons. And he reached in his drawer, and he handed me this letter with a picture of this 11-year-old boy at the time asking for 2 new arms and a leg. And I looked at the picture, and I read the letter, and it's as if everything around me went, just faded out. And I knew somehow I wanted to help this boy. I didn't know how. I had no idea. I left the office that day, and to fast forward, I called prosthetic companies, hospitals, doctors, and airlines. And they miraculously said, yes, we'll help. And I called several airlines until I got Austrian Airlines that said that, we'll be happy to. So within 2 days, I called the ambassador, and I said, I found help for this boy. And he was like stunned. I was stunned. So that night, I went to bed, and I couldn't believe what I had done. And then another layer of reality set in, which was, where is he going to stay? I have a 1-bedroom townhouse with a 150-pound Newfoundland dog, and I have anxiety. But I said he was going to stay with me. So a month and a half later, he and his mother came, and they stayed in my home, in my 1-bedroom townhouse. I got a daybed in the living room. And within that 4 months, I was putting Kenan back together, but he was healing me, And it was becoming more and more. In fact, I wouldn't drive. I wouldn't even get on the expressway anymore. And he said, you're going to get on the expressway, and he sat beside me, and he said, come on, Elissa, go, Elissa, go. And he just broke down all these barriers in me. Well, we had a press conference at the UN, and there was the doctor, the hospital, and the ambassador, Kenan and myself, and we were all going to say a little something. And it was Kenan's time to talk, and he could just about say thank you, and he was, kind of shaken. And I needed to take over. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I knew I had to take over. I knew I had to speak for myself and for him. Kenan went back. I was on New York 1. I was New Yorker of the Week, so they kept showing it for a week, and every half hour. And the Shriners Children's Hospital had called me, and they said, guess what? We want to help. You know, you help this boy. You know, we help children in this country, and, you know, we'll be happy to help another child. And I knew I had to bring Kenan back at this point because he was growing, and he needed 2 new arms and a leg. And it's just at one time that you get your prosthetics. So I planned a trip to Bosnia. And I went to the war-torn area, and it was overwhelming. I stayed with Kenan and his family. I visited hospitals, orphanages. I compiled a list of children. Came back. I called my accountant that did my taxes every year, and I said, how do I start a charity? I have no experience in this. And so I did. And I stayed. The Archdiocese had offered me to stay at the former orphanage there, which was an infirmary. I was in Parade magazine. They did a story, and I took the Parade magazine. I went to IKEA and Home Depot, and here I am gaining all my courage. And I said, can you help refurbish? And they did. And little by little, things started happening, and then there was the earthquake in El Salvador, brought a child, and then the war broke out in Iraq. And I went to Iraq, and I brought the first boy back. It took me a while, and when I did, I brought another child from Iraq, and then there was adversity. People were sure, you know, the soldiers are on the front page of the news, and you're bringing Iraqi children. They're going to grow up to be terrorists, or our soldiers should be on the first page. And I dealt with that for a while, and it was our soldiers that were contacting me at this point to help these children. So I had to get through that, and it was very challenging. And then there was tsunamis in Indonesia and earthquakes, and it just kept going. And then to fast forward again, I was going to Haiti for the earthquake. 60 Minutes called, and they said, we learned about this woman who works in her walk-in closet, which I failed to tell you that that's where my office was, and still is. I just cut out a window so I can see the water like this much through the trees. And they said, we want to get you out of the closet. Anyway, they did a phenomenal segment. And with that, it caught the attention of Tyler Perry and another corporate person in Manhattan, which was Miles Nadell from MDC Assets. And they said, what do you need? I said, a house. So got a house. We tiled at the Dare to Dream house. And to today, we have helped 44 countries, over 250 children with about 1,200 follow-up visits. It is a very small charity, but very big, because these kids are not numbers, and these children go back for ambassadors. They go back with dignity, and the whole glory and victory of it is these children, you know, they could have kicked a can that exploded, dangling from a tree from the tsunami, losing a limb. A little baby was 2 months old when her mother tossed her in the trash and set her on fire in Swaziland, Africa. And most recently, 2 years ago, Tanzania. If you have albinism, which is prevalent in Tanzania, people who are albino, you are in danger because witch doctors pay people to go out in the night in these villages and machete limbs off. And so we learned about that, and just when you think that you know, you've heard it all, you haven't. So the whole idea here is that these countries do not have the resources that we have, and the adversity that I had dealt with was, why do you help other countries? Why can't you help children? And we do help children right here at home. We do, but there's also these countries that they don't have a chance. I have 2 children here today that I brought. We have 7 right now. I brought 2. Achuma from Nepal, who lost a leg, and Valence from Rwanda, who lost his leg. And they're here for prosthetics, and they'll go home walking. And they'll be able to go to school and live a productive life. So if it wasn't for me stepping out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't be able to be standing here and telling you the story.